guess we'll do it. Alright. Hi, it's me, Sir Uranus. Amara here. And today I'm going to talk about, you know, well, today we're going to talk about, you know, thanking Naoko Takaguchi. Now, I know that that film would be like, a short film, thanking Naoko Takaguchi for, coming up with Sailor Moon and stuff. It would be like someone thanking Han Siobhan for coming up with the Power Rangers or Strength Keepers. So the first thing I want to talk about is, alright, so, were the unstraight folk in Sailor Moon, were they, handled right? Well, I could say yes, and I could also say no, depending on who you talk to. Now, first you have Zoisite and Malachite, so we're not going to even go with that. Because in the DEEK one, they were one was a woman, one was a man, so you got to overlook that. So yeah, in DEEK, how was it handled? Well, in DEEK, it was handled in one way. Zoisite became a woman, and Malachite, well, he was already a man, so he kept a man, but it was Zoisite who became a woman. And that seemed to be alright for folks who were watching it. Now, there weren't any more of that. And the rest of the DEEK, there was no more. So I think at the end of the day, only Zoisite and Malachite may have been the shift as far as DEEK went. When you got into, I don't know, the fourth following, maybe even the fifth following, by the time this was Pioneer's work, Pioneer handled it in maybe one or two ways. Now, Pioneer's way of Pioneer's way of handling it was called them nearkin. I'm not making that up. That was what we were called. And I know a lot of folks out there say, well, Sailor Uranus, Sailor Neptune and you were called nearkin. Yes. And I know that's been put out there to be made fun of over the years. And some folks have their belief that us being called nearkin was just, Pioneer's way of making fun of DEEK shifting and, just saying, well, you just say they're unstraight. Even Pioneer had to do some stuff, to shift it out. Why? I'll get on to the grounds to that. Once you got to the fourth following, you had Fisheye, sometimes known as Fish's Eye, or Fisheye, so the name is the same on any offshoot of Sailor Moon you watch. Some say that since it was a he, they shifted it and made it a she, but my belief, Fisheye was already a she to begin with. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. Now, was that actually handled badly? No, I truly don't believe it was handled badly. Now I get to the grounds to why was that handled the way it was handled. Well, there are some folks in this world, I guess let's just say there are still folks in this world, who are not so understanding and not so trusting of it. Folks who believed that it was wrong for it to be on the Farseer, or to be in a film, or a play, or a show, or anything like that. Even if the selves, or selfhoods, or selves weren't doing anything wrong, it was felt to be wrong. keep in mind today more folks are trusting and understanding and open-minded to one and who they choose to be in love with or who they see their love choose as. You know, a lot of folks were not so understanding and trusting and opening minded to it in the early days. You know, and Deke at the time did not want to be in a bind with someone saying, I saw my children watch a live drawing show with two men who loved each other, which at the end of the day probably wasn't anything wrong with it, but Deke didn't want to take that, didn't want to be in that bind. Or two women who were in love with each other, which at the end of the day, nothing wrong with it, but Pioneer didn't want to be in that bind either. Now, some folks out there might say that was there any other way that Deke and Pioneer could have done it? At the end of the day, I don't really think so. I think the way they did it's the way they did it. You know, I don't really think there was any other way they could have handled it. And I think the way that Deke and Pioneer handled it was probably the good way they could handle it. You know, giving to what they had to work with back in the day. Now you might say to yourself, oh well, Viz didn't do anything. Well, keep in mind, Viz didn't have the same oversight. Viz didn't have to worry about the bind that they would be in. Viz was just putting it out on disc for, I don't know, grown-ups, I'm guessing. I don't know. Children. And I'm guessing at the end of the day, there were more open-minded and more trusting and understanding folks when it came to that than it was back then. You know? So, at the end of the day, a lot of folks would say, well, why would they even call you and Sailor Neptune near kin? I don't know. I wasn't Pioneer. I'm guessing Pioneer had to come up with some grounds to why we were always around. You know, we had this bond. So I guess Pioneer had to think, well, why are they around each other and why are they doing this? Well, they're near kin. That's the only thing they could come up with. When it comes to Fisheye, shifting her to a woman, it worked. Because even though she wasn't doing anything wrong, there were folks out there that folks thought that was wrong. Some folks thought it was wrong if you were a woman and you hadn't have man's wear on or whatever you were doing, which there's nothing wrong with it. And when it came down to what happened to Zoisite and Milikite, same ground. Some folks thought it was wrong. Deke didn't want to be in that bind. So that's why Zoisite became a woman. And since I've always watched the Deke one, Zoisite's always been a woman. Just like Fisheye's always been a woman. And we always been near kin. Now, this might be unlike if you're watching the Viz one or the Toei or any other offshoot of it there is. So, that's just my take on my belief. Were the unstraight folk handled right? Well, I would say yes, in my belief. Because it's never been a hang-up with anyone. You know, except for some Sailor Moon followers out there who, you know, talk about how they believe it was handled badly. But I think that Deke and Pioneer did a good job with what they had to work with. Now there's going to be some folks out there saying that, saying all kinds of things, but at the end of the day, that's my belief, that's my thought. I think they did a good job with it, and I also believe, and this is my belief of why shifts to them were made. If you like that film, then follow me here at Sailor Moon for Life, or watch the other film we made yesterday over here. I'm Sarah Uranus Amara. Hope you like this film.